Good morning to you, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the 26th annual breakfast meeting of the Baltimore Office of Civil Rights. My name is Kai Jackson with WBFF Fox 45. It's my pleasure to serve as your master of ceremonies this morning. Many of you I know and hear after being in this city for 24 years and being a native Marylander myself. I'm familiar with many of the faces here in this audience. I've worked with you on a number of programs at events over the years. Some of you are friends, some of you are acquaintances, and others I know, but it's an honor to be here. I think it's appropriate that we're here today on the 60th anniversary of the Little Rock Nine, which is unbelievable. 9 young people integrating Central High School in Little Rock, Arkansas, and found myself some years later in Prince George's County, being taken out of my predominantly black school in Glen Arden, Maryland, and being bused to a predominantly white school in the early 1970s. And it was a very interesting experience. And it's one that has left an indelible impression upon me even to this day. So my being here today isn't just as someone who's a figurehead, but somebody who is integrally involved in what's happened in this state and what continues to happen in our country. The Office of Civil Rights has an incredible record of being inspired, informed, progressive, keynote speakers to this event. As you all know, you've attended this event before. And the tradition continues with the insightful, brilliant, award-winning professor, author, teacher of African American history, New York Emmy-nominated documentary filmmaker, Dr. Sonia Whitehead. Please give her a hand. I ask you to approach this morning as an opportunity to refocus, recommit, and resolve to engage in the promotion of civil rights throughout our city and even our state. This is the mission of the Office of Civil Rights and Wage Enforcement. And at this time, I'd like to thank John Milton Wesley for having me out this morning, and of course, Director Joe Carter for asking me to be here. Thank you so much, Director Carter. It is indeed an honor. We do have a little bit of housekeeping, and we want to introduce our head table, of course, so that you know, many of you do know. My far left, well, actually, it's going to be, is everybody seated in their positions? I'm just going to read the names as they're here, because I think people are in different positions, okay? And please raise your hand on the dais. Community Relations Chair, Reverend Todd Erie. Thank you, Reverend Erie. Civilian Review Board Chair, Dr. Bridal Pearson. Thank you. Wage Commission Chair, Cheryl Wood, Esquire. Again, our keynote speaker this morning, Dr. Sonia Whitehead. We also have the Honorable Mayor of Baltimore City, Catherine Pugh. Is Mayor Pugh here yet? She is here, okay. Mayor Pugh is eating, thank you very much. The Director of the Office of Civil Rights, of course, Ms. Joe Carter. You all know. And we also have some other dignitaries that we want to make acknowledgement of course. We have this morning Queen Wafor representing Senator Chris Van Hollen's office, Baltimore County Executive Kevin Kamenetz, Nicholas Blendy with the County Executive's office, Judge Shannon Avery, Circuit Court, Christopher Burnett, Baltimore City Council, Judge Karen Friedman, also a friend of mine, Judge Althea Handy, Senator Nathaniel McFadden is here as well, Alice Cole, guest of Senator McFadden, Baltimore City State's Attorney Ms. Mosby, Marilyn Mosby here this morning, Shannon Sneed, also a friend and former co-worker of mine as well. Shannon, good to see you this morning. Now at this time, we would like to bring forward somebody to give us the occasion this morning. Please welcome Reverend Heber Brown III of Pleasant Hope Baptist Church. Reverend Brown is going to bring forward our invocation. Reverend Brown.
What a pleasure it is for us to be here this morning. In the words of my great-grandmother and grandmother, they'd say something like, I'm so glad that God gave us just one more day. He woke us up this morning and started us on our way. With that, I'd like to ask you to center yourself as we bow for a word of prayer. Good and gracious God, known by many names, we bow this morning first to say thank you for the gift of life. We thank you that early this morning you touched us with your finger of love and allowed us another opportunity to experience this day's journey. Lord, we pray that you would center our minds and our hearts, that we might bring our best selves to the table for the important work yet ahead. We thank you for those who have gone before us. Particularly this morning, we're grateful for the Goon Squad. We thank you, Lord, for those righteous troublemakers who dared to put their bodies on the line for your beloved community. The truth of the matter is that many of us are in the roles that we're in right now because somebody dared to take a risk. Somebody stuck their neck out and put their body on the line and allowed room for us to step into places that generations ago would have not been possible. Keep us forever mindful of your scriptures and holy word, which point us to what you call us to. What would the Lord require of you? But to do justice, to love mercy, and to walk humbly with your God. Lord, I pray that for every person in the room, you would help put us in remembrance on why we started on the path that we're in. The routine and the work of our professions and our various lanes of occupation sometimes get so high that we forget why we started. Put us in remembrance of that today, and for all those who are going to speak and share, I pray that you use them, that they might reignite, revive, and spark that spirit for justice within all of us. Keep us maladjusted to injustice. Help us to discomfort the comfortable. And help us, Lord, to bring comfort to those who are weary and weak, that we all might one day experience a better society because we turned and allowed your spirit to lead and guide. Thank you for the leadership who are here in all their various lanes. Keep our hands forever toward what you call us to. It's in your name we pray. Amen.
Reverend Brown, thank you very much for those words. We appreciate that. Also want to acknowledge City Council President Jack Young, Baltimore Police Commissioner Kevin Davis here as well. We'll continue to acknowledge other dignitaries who are here this morning. Please continue to enjoy your breakfast this morning, ladies and gentlemen, but we want to move along with our program. It has gotten a little bit late in the hour, but we're going to try to make up a little time if that's okay. At this time, I want to bring forward to you the new director here to talk this morning. Before I bring up the director, we want to have Lady Breon, who's going to give us some spoken word this morning. Lady Breon, are you here this morning? And Baltimore Mayor Catherine Pugh. Just so that you know a little bit about Lady Breon: bold, dedicated, and inspirational. These three words perfectly describe Breon Gill, a UB student, community activist, and spoken word poet known as Lady Breon. Inspired by the HBO television series Def Poetry Jam, she's fearlessly stood on the stages voicing her passions and convictions since she was 12 years old. Starting with church events and high school debate teams, Lady Breon's talent has taken her to London, Ghana, Tanzania, and recently to the 2015 Individual World Poetry Slam held in Washington, D.C. Would you please welcome Lady Breon?
Good morning. Well, thank you so much for having me. I was struggling this morning trying to figure out what poem I would do because I was like, it's a civil rights breakfast, so maybe I should do a poem about a current issue that's facing our city. But then I think I'm inspired to go a different way, thinking about myself and how doing the work as an organizer can be really draining, and how oftentimes I have to consistently motivate myself to continually do the work. And so I figured that there may be some other people in this room who had that same experience sometimes. So I'm going to do a different poem. This is for you then. So I'm going to do a poem that I actually wrote to myself called Reciprocity, and I hope you all will enjoy. Reciprocity is like the bright of the sun, coalescing with the cool of the moon, creating this whirl of solar, lunar eclipses of balance. But in this cosmic cavern, my unifying compass is cracked, catapulting me into the gaping holes in the blackened lows of tarnished self-esteem, a black hole, strong enough to suck in my ideas and dreams till all vitality is non-existent, deep enough to swallow God's light and reflect nothing. Too many times I threw in the towel at the mirror, giving up on myself. I couldn't see the promise that the world had projected onto me, felt like God had wasted good talent when he poured it onto me, because I couldn't hang in the big leagues. Striking out before the first pitch, dismissed myself before a more positive school of thought could get started, barely parted my lips before I muffled my voice with doubt. Hardly a spark before I ran to put the flames out, wallowing in self-inflicted wounds of pity. Never would have imagined this arduous obstacle course prohibiting me was a mental maze, crafted from the sticks and stones of old adages, affixed with words that hurt more than any disease, because it's dis-ease cognitively when your wants seem to exceed the limits of your perceived self-worth. See, you gotta give confidence if success you wanna receive. I got all the gifts in the world, but where is my belief? Done wrote about 100 poems, barely got 1 CD, so I decided to write a poem to the scared parts of me. For this scarred ego, beaten down into a timid tremble. For this tongue, tying itself in knots in fear of being influential. For these brown ears, unwilling to hear compliments, claiming to be humble. My mind envisions perpetually, but my hands refuse to manifest my destiny. Limp legs, too afraid to leap because failure is where I might land. So here I stand in this mediocre purgatory, not trying, not succeeding, not living, just being. What's the point in having a passion if we're too afraid to go after it? We watch untalented people thrive every day because they got drive no matter how inefficient. As we sit complaining about our lackluster lives because to fear, we've become submissive. You gotta give yourself permission now. Run, Forrest Gump style, into a horizon of promise, propped up on the moonlight of your past. Gotta work at it every day if success is a habit you want to last. Scraping away wooden dismay till a carved caricature materializes. Oh, you don't believe? Well, lie to your mind's eye till you can see the truth of your excellence. See, there's a criminal in my psyche, but who's to blame when I'm the culprit? So today, I decided to dungeon my doubts, incarcerate my insecurities, place my inhibitions behind lock and key, because the only one standing in my way is me. And I might fail, but starting is the only way I'll see. See, there are enough haters in the world, so I'ma subtract my 32 teeth from the chatter. Can't be proud of life if what I did doesn't matter. Today I place my artistry in a box of alabaster, sacredly secluded from this dilemma, erupting in the depth of my soul where my moon is shining away from the radiant light of my sun as I sit in sky awaiting for them to eclipse as one. Thank you. My name is Lady Breon.
The lady has spoken. Lady Breon, thank you so much. Thank you very, very much. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the 26th year for the breakfast meeting for the first of many for our new director. Here to bring us the occasion this morning is Joe P. Carter, the director of the Office of Civil Rights.
Good morning. I don't know that my late mother would think this is the appropriate greeting, but I've got to just say, wow. I am just so excited and motivated to see all of you in this room. I've been told we have to move the program along, so I promise not to be long because we have many, many exciting things ahead this morning. But let me just say that we, everyone in this room, collectively and individually, we are the ones that we've been waiting for. We are those that will bring individually and collectively justice to Baltimore. I am just amazed that we have gathered so many people that are in those positions to do so. She's been acknowledged, but I have to give mention to my former law school classmate, Shannon Avery, Judge Shannon Avery, whose light was so bright in law school, I always knew that great things were going to come with her. But I was also told by a little bird that she was also the one that got many of you other members of the bench here, because she mentioned at the bench meeting that this was something that was very important and we should all participate in. I have to acknowledge our new city solicitor, the Honorable Judge Andre Davis. Thank you so much for being here. We look forward. We look very forward to working with you and the leadership that you bring to this city. Thank you, Commissioner Kevin Davis, who I must say was among the first to purchase a ticket, who was here with his whole executive team. And let me just say, Commissioner Davis, I'm excited and thank you because you are open-minded, you have been very open to dialogue, and I believe that that open-mindedness is going to help us in our effort to move beyond where we are with civilian participation in policing to robust civilian oversight of policing. So I thank you for what you've done so far and what is yet to come. When Mayor Pugh had the vision to appoint me as Director of Civil Rights in January, I was uncertain about what I would bring to it and what we would do, but I don't know why, because my sister Judy, who's at the first table, and I were born into the belly of the civil rights struggle with our parents and our father, Walter P. Carter, being a leader in that struggle. I'm told by some, and I can stand corrected if I need, but I'm told that even before the Goon Squad, Walter Carter was leading and organizing. I have to quickly acknowledge my family. Judy's husband, Judge Sylvester Cox, who I am very, very pleased is here today, and it just speaks to the strength of our family, and the strength of our family is the strength of this city and what we bring to the civil rights struggle. Judge Cox lost his mother this morning. Yet he is here because as a family, we know that we must stick together and there is strength in our cause. He believes in our cause. So thank you, Judge Cox, Brother Sylvester, for being here today. When I took on this mission in January, again, I did not know what to expect, but I was happy to walk into an agency that, although it had been systemically decreased and underfunded over multiple administrations, the level of passion for the issues of freedom, justice, and equality was astounding to me. And I knew that I was in the right place, absolutely the right place. And again, I can't take credit for that. That was a combination of God and Mayor Pugh, so thank you. We have embarked upon appointing some of the brightest minds, some of the strongest champions and advocates for freedom, justice, and equality to our boards and commissions. Today you see on the dais members of our Community Relations Commission. We also have appointed members to our Civilian Review Board and to our Wage Commission. We intend to spend the next year, so by the time you all come back next year, we will have even more accomplishments to speak of. But we intend to become and be ambassadors to the cause of justice in Baltimore City when it comes to housing, education, public accommodations, employment. Our Wage Commission seeks to ensure that everyone in the city of Baltimore enjoys fair wages for their labor. And that is our mission, that is our call. We've already achieved great accomplishments in that, and so we look forward to doing even more. Without further ado, I just want to say that our theme today is the fierce urgency of now. So we stand on the shoulders of the greats like the Goon Squads and like the Walter Carters and like so many champions of justice and freedom before us. But our call is now, and is always incumbent upon the members of every generation to make sure that we further it. It's never over until it's won. So if we still have badges and vestiges of past discrimination, it isn't over. If we still have inequity in our city in any way, it isn't over. And so I challenge and implore each one of you here to work with us, to partner with us. Nobody that's fighting for the cause of justice need be alone ever, because we are all in this together. Thank you so much. And without further ado, I want to bring on a woman of great vision, of great leadership, of great intellect, great depth, and a person who, frankly, because I know she's at the helm, I can sleep at night because she brings me peace. She brings calm to the environment. She has it under control. This is our great 50th mayor of Baltimore City, Catherine E. Pugh. Thank you.
Let me just first say, give an honor and praise to God just for the privilege to be in front of all of you all this morning. There was never a doubt, there was never a second thought who would lead this agency for me, because what Jill didn't say is that we met many years ago, but during our legislative experience, I had an opportunity to encounter her on several occasions. And I know that her heart was right, that she was focused. In fact, Jill, I have to share this with you, that I was in Washington, D.C. this weekend at the Congressional Black Caucus, and I told them no more panels, you all. I appeared on 5 different panels. And one of them was talking about the state of Black America. And another one was on badges, flags, and monuments. And in the one on monuments, a gentleman from Annapolis started to tell the history of how the Taney statue came down. And I said, well, I guess he didn't know I was there. And he went on to say that he woke up that morning and the Taney statue was down. Well, rightfully so. But what I said to him, since you are writing history, which is what he was doing, was writing history, please, in your efforts to tell the story of Taney, please don't forget that Jill Carter, Delegate Jill Carter, introduced legislation. The statue didn't come down, but she has to be a part of that history. So I just wanted to let you know that we reminded them of that. And in the words of Sharonda Rhimes, people said, why are you quoting her? Well, let me just tell you what she said. You know, we're always talking about inclusiveness, diversity, and what Sharonda Rhimes says is that it's really about being normal. Look around this room. This is about being normal. Normal means being inclusive. Normal means being diverse. Normal means recognizing the population that you serve and who you are serving. When we talk about economic opportunity, when we talk about diversifying pension portfolios, when we talk about creating jobs and opportunities, we have to be talking about the citizens of Baltimore. We know what the population is, and our cabinets, everything should reflect who we represent. And it was interesting, while I was doing this, participating on the panel for the state of Black America, I was shocked that one of the city council person's staff members jumped up and said, I just want to know, what are you doing for African American women in your administration? And I said, are you kidding? But I answered. I said, my chief of staff is an African American female. My civil rights director is an African American female. My transportation director is an African American female. The head of my housing authority is an African American female. The head of human services is an African American female. The head of investments for the city is an African American female. The head of our commissioner of labor is an African American female. Do your homework. And it really was about coming in the room and saying we've got a level, and that's not to say we've not appointed other people of other races, but we had to balance the scales. You met our city solicitor, the great judge. So who retires from the federal bench to come be a city solicitor? That's because he wants to come home and he recognizes that we've got a lot of work to do. I want to remind you all that we're right near the finishing of our consent decree, and that we've appointed a Citizens Oversight Committee, And I said it's important that the majority of those sitting on that commission are African American males. And we've done that. And it's important because when we talk about these issues, we've got to make sure that we're inclusive of those who've been impacted over the years. And as we continue to move our city forward, it's how we all work together. You know, I don't get to do this work by myself. And initially, when I became mayor, I did a call to action. And I was hoping for 30 people to appear in that room. And over 100 folks appeared. And we continued to meet. And then we had a big call to action at Baltimore City Community College. And over 400 people came. But what I want you to know is that every other week in City Hall, we open up the doors to individuals who you may not know, who are on the ground doing the work every day. We've created contracts for them to help them move their agenda forward. We just recently got a grant for them to do their 2-day workshop on how they continue to move the city forward. Whether you're in the ceasefire organization or the community mediation group, they're in the room giving suggestions, giving ideas, because again, collectively together, we will move our city forward. I'm excited. I tell people I still pinch myself every day that I get to do this work, but at the same time, I realize that this is a challenge. But with every challenge comes an opportunity. And so I'm excited. I see our Councilwoman Middleton. I don't know whether you got acknowledged. I saw Speaker Pro Tem, Adrian. Please stand up because we have to go to her for our capital budget. You know, it's important. It's important. Because we go there fiercely, and I can tell you all that this has been an extremely challenging time because there's so much that people don't understand about city government. You know, city government does two things. It provides services and opportunity. And what we want to make sure is that everybody gets the services, but also gets opportunity. And we've neglected certain parts of our city for decades. When I think about the number of board of houses that are in our city, and I've said to folks, anytime we've had more than 10 years of people having board of houses in our city, we ought to just knock them down, sue me later. I'm serious about that. Because we've got to create better opportunities in our city for affordable housing. And let me just leave with this. We said that we need to put people to work. So if you know somebody, anybody that doesn't have a job, we expect to see them on September the 27th at the Convention Center. Because we are providing jobs and opportunities. We need Baltimoreans to work. We've created the mobile units going out to the neighborhoods and communities for people who've given up hope. And we'll have another one starting in March or April of next year. I thank you all for this opportunity, but more importantly, Jill Carter, I look forward to your continued work and effort, and we're excited about the future as it relates to your department. Thank you again.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, for those words. At this time, we're going to have our swearing in. I'm going to need the mayor back up here to read the city. First of all, the swearing in of the CRC commissioners. Let's do that first. Our community relations commissioners. We're going to have our swearing in now. And in addition to that, we're going to read our proclamations following that with Chairs Yeary and Pearson. That's going to be following the swearing in of the CRC commissioners. If we can have all of them come up as well at this time, thank you.
Oh yeah, my deputy, our director of government relations and her deputy, African American females. I think our whole staff is here. Will you all stand up? Okay. Where's the, so I just, all right, I guess you all supposed to raise your right hand. And repeat after me. I do swear or affirm that I will support the Constitution of the United States and that I will be faithful and bear true allegiance to the state of Maryland. Y'all should say, and the city of Baltimore. And support the Constitution and laws thereof. And that I will, to the best of my skill and judgment, diligently and faithfully, without partiality or prejudice, execute the office of Community Relations Commissioner, according to the Constitution of the state and the city. I think y'all are hereby sworn in. Thank you all. Oh, you all have to sign the book. Each of you have to sign the book. There you go. Okay. You finished?
All right, ladies and gentlemen, at this time, I'm going to ask that Pastor Yuri come back up for the presentation of our proclamations. Pastor Yuri.
Good morning. Thank you for being here. It is indeed my privilege to acknowledge those who have served diligently and faithfully the various commissions of the Office of Civil Rights over the years in our city. We certainly want to acknowledge their service this morning while we are here assembled, and so when your names are called, we invite you to come forward that we might express our appreciation for your commitment to civil rights. First is Charlene Bourne. Coming from my right and your left. John Farron. Farron, I'm sorry. Victor Clark. Joseph Brown. And Alvin Gilliard.
Members of the Goon Squad, Oliver Patrick Scott, Lalit H. Gadia, family of Reverend Harold L. Dobson Sr., family of Reverend Franklin L. Williams. Family of Reverend Marion C. Boscombe. Family of Reverend Vernon N. Dobson. Family of Dr. Homer E. Favor. Family of Congressman Perrin J. Mitchell. Family of Judge Joseph C. Howard. Family of Dr. Augustus A. Adair. Family of Madeline Murphy. Family of Reverend Wendell H. Phillips. And other honorees, W. Paul Coates. And finally, Dr. Linwood Ivy.
Let me just say, those persons receiving honors today are those that have given of themselves throughout the years to the cause of civil rights. I am honored that my predecessor, Alvin Gilliard, is here receiving an award as Director of Civil Rights. But even prior to Alvin Gilliard was the great Honorable John Ferran. John, thank you for coming out, because I know you don't come out too much for too many occasions. And so I am going to offer, if there's a word or two that you'd like to say for just a few minutes, we will allow it. I want to briefly, though, first just acknowledge, I feel, and I said when I came in this morning, I felt like I was home. Back in the day, growing up in Ashburton, when Reverend Phillips rode by my house with that ponytail and that motorcycle, always saying, "Hey, pretty girl, come over here." And Judge Joe Howard, the same. And so to see their sons, Wendell Phillip and Joseph Howard, here just does my heart good. They know, like I do, that we have a calling, and we can never rest until we have carried out the true meaning of our parents' legacy. So, true intent. Thank you. Dr. Linwood Ivy, please come up. Dr. Ivy, the head of the Baltimore City Foundation, has done so much for so many, so quietly, for so long. I got to say that from what I'm told by my devoted staff, the Civil Rights Agency may not exist if Dr. Ivy hadn't been around keeping us afloat in the background. We love Dr. Ivy, who was also part of a critical, pivotal part of the civil rights struggle. And so we aren't going to ask everyone to speak, but we are going to say, if there is something that you'd like to say, we will give you 30 seconds to say it, because you are important and your voice is important to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Jill. I'd simply like to say we want to welcome Jill aboard as the new director of the agency, and we certainly hope that with the support of the mayor, that this agency will once again reach the level that it did many, many years ago, when it had about 4 or 5 times the number of staff that it has today. And I've been to so many of these during John Ferran's tenure and Alvin Gilliard's tenure. Their time as a director, and it's really fantastic to see after all these years that this room is still full of people who want to celebrate the civil rights movement. Thank you so much.
From the Register of Wills. Be it hereby known to all that Belinda K. Conway, Register of Wills for Baltimore City, congratulates Honorable Jill P. Carter for the annual Civil Rights Breakfast. Thank you for the decades of service to Baltimore City. Your dedication is uplifting the community, is a beacon of light to all. I direct this resolution be presented on this 25th day of September 2017, signed by Dr. Belinda K. Conway, Register of Wills, City of Baltimore.
Well, thank you so much. I was not expecting to receive an award myself today, but I thank you so much. Let me just also say that we have our Civil Rights Business Award. So we have distinction. There's distinctions between all of these esteemed people on this dais. Paul Coates started the Black Classic Press, grew out of a grassroots organization started in his basement, and for all of these years has been the only black publisher in the country, and right here in Baltimore City. I must say, he also told me to say, please come up, Paul, just for a second. He doesn't like acknowledgement. That's the thing about true champions of justice and advocates. They don't really do it for the recognition. They do it because it's the right thing to do and because they're filling a need. So I just want to say thank you so much for all that you do. And you may say a word, but you don't have to.
Quick word. I don't do awards well. I just don't do them well. But the person and the reason I stand here and the shadow that I stand in, the foots and the shoulders that carry me is this woman's father. And I just want to acknowledge Walter P. Carter as definitely one of our greatest legends, one of our greatest legends. And I just want to thank you for your father. He is my inspiration. He is what fueled me. And I love him, love you consequently. Thank you. I love the mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Paul. Well, you can take your box too that you're working.
Oh, thank you, sweetie.
Thank you. I promised that I did not ask him to say that, but I really appreciate it. We always appreciate the acknowledgement of the work of our father that he gave to the city, and we know that if it were not for the ancestors, the fathers of the people standing on this podium, none of us would be in the positions that we're in today, most likely. We have two final acknowledgements, I believe. We want to acknowledge the Bank of America. The Bank of America was the chief sponsor of this event, allowing many of us to be here, and allowing us to invite some members of the community that may not have been able to afford our expensive tickets to our wonderful meatless breakfast that I'm sure you all enjoy. We also want to acknowledge McGuire Woods and my brother and friend Alan Kaysen, who is one of the few black partners at one of the top law firms in the DMV, and also the Associated Black Charities for sponsoring this event as well. Finally, I believe the Baltimore City Foundation, as I've already acknowledged Dr. Ivy, and Kaiser Permanente. So thank you all, and I'm going to ask everyone to stay here for pictures. Thank you.
Is our photographer available for pictures? Thank you. Okay, oh, thank you very much. However you want to do it, let them know, and then we'll step out of the way. And a couple of acknowledgements. I want to make sure we make Delegate Terry Hill here, obviously in the audience today, Delegate Kurt Anderson, and Judge Karen Friedman as well. Thank you all very much. He's right there. He's gonna line him up. Sit.
As they say on social media and everywhere these days, say their name. For the final time, I just want to say the names of the honorable, esteemed members of the Goon Squad, the fearless champions of justice that fought to eradicate discrimination in all aspects of our society. So Oliver Patrick Scott and Lalit Gadia are the two living members that were here. Thank you for your service. The family of Reverend Harold L. Dobson, Frank L. Williams, Marion C. Bascom, the great Vernon Dobson, one of my favorite ministers of all time, who spoke truth in the pulpit, not just the gospel. Congressman Perrin Mitchell, Homer Favor, Joseph C. Howard, Augustus Adair, Madeline Murphy, and Reverend Wendell H. Phillips. Thank you.
Again, congratulations to all of those sworn in today, those who received awards and proclamations. Thank you, Director Carter. We appreciate that. And thank you, Dr. Pearson and Pastor Yuri, for the presentations.
And certainly to Mayor Pugh, Council President Young, Director Carter, members of the judiciary, elected officials, distinguished members of the constituent commissions of the Office of Civil Rights, to the civic servants in the room, and to distinguished guests, it is indeed my privilege to present to some and introduce to others our keynote speaker for the morning, Dr. Sonia Wise Whitehead, also known as Dr. K. She is the Associate Professor of Communication and African and African American Studies in the Department of Communication at Loyola University, Maryland, the founding Executive Director of the Emily Francis Davis Center for Education, Research, and Culture. She is an award-winning author of 4 books. You will see the titles of the books in her printed bio. Certainly see her to obtain a copy. I think they will add great value to all of your libraries. A former K-12 master teacher she is a K-12 master teacher in African American history. You see all of her acknowledgments. The key acknowledgement that we want to raise is on October the 2nd. She will be launching her new show, Today with Dr. K, at 3 o'clock on WEAA 88.9. But today she is going to speak to us about the fierce urgency of now. Please join me in welcoming Dr. K, Dr. Sonia Wise Whitehead.
Good morning. I consider it both an honor and a privilege to be here. I understand that in Baltimore City we have a long history of people standing up and doing the right thing at the right moment. So I'd like to acknowledge that I'm standing here on their shoulders. I'm standing here as a result of their sacrifice. I'm standing here because they prayed and they cried and they stood and they marched. I'm standing here because they have taught us not to stand still, but to keep moving forward. And so I acknowledge that, and I thank Director Carter for inviting me. I thank you for your tireless work on behalf of Baltimore City, and I thank you for somehow roping me into being a commissioner. I'm not sure exactly how it happened. We were just saying hello, and the next thing I know, I'm being sworn in. That is the power of Director Carter. She knows exactly what she wants, and she will not let anything stand in her way to achieve getting something better for Baltimore City. So thank you for that. I believe we must be the ones that we have been waiting for. We must teach our children how to paint their lives upon the wind, how to protect themselves in a dark and dying world, and how to reclaim their voice even though the world around them wants them to be quiet, wants them to disappear, wants them to be silent, wants them to stand by and allow the things that are happening to go unchecked. We have to teach our children to be the ones that we expect them to be. We have to talk to them about taking up the torch. We have to remind them of who they are and where they have come from. We have to put them in front of the mirror on a daily basis, like Dr. Freeman Rabowski said, and have them greet themselves with the titles that they one day want to be called. They should be calling themselves, "Good morning, Esquire Whitehead. Good morning, Judge Whitehead. Good morning, Delegate Whitehead. Good morning, Dr. Whitehead." They have to begin to see themselves beyond where the media sees them at this moment. We have to teach them how to dream. And if necessary, we have to dream for them. Because sometimes when you're inundated by the realities of this world, you forget that dreaming will take you farther than you have ever been before. That is the work I think we need to do. Our title today is The Fierce Urgency of Now. And that is what gets me up every morning in Baltimore City, a fierce urgency that I do not have to accept this reality. I can drive my sons and drop them off and be secure that they're going to get the education that they deserve. I can pick them up knowing that somewhere, somehow, somebody has poured truth and justice and light into them when they were away from me. I can demand something better because that is what we do. I thought about that, and I thought a lot about James Baldwin, because they recently celebrated James Baldwin Day in New York, reading from his work. In 1963, James Baldwin spoke to teachers, and he acknowledged to them, he said, "I'm not a teacher, but I do want to teach some things today." And if you've ever read anything by James Baldwin, he takes space to speak about truth. He said in 1963 that we are living in dangerous times, and everyone in the room knew that. This was a year when the world had witnessed the Birmingham Children's Campaign, when Dr. King was in jail and made the decision to put babies on the front line. I do not remember that time, of course, but my father told me what it was like to realize that little children, elementary school children, had picked up the banner to go and stand on the front line. When the adults said they were too tired, when high school students had been arrested, it was middle school students and elementary school students who said, "Arrest me, because I want to be free too." Dick Gregory, who we recently just celebrated his passage into the next journey of his adventure, said that when he arrived in Birmingham, he got off the plane, walked into the airport, and they met him at the curb and arrested him. They knew he was coming. He said he was in a jail cell with a 4-year-old boy, a boy who had gone to school with his sister, and she asked him, did he want to go on an adventure after school? This little boy was held in prison, and Bull Connor told him, "I will hold him for every day of a year of your life." He was 4 years old. And they kept him in prison for 4 days. Dick Gregory said he used to hold this little boy at night, and he would ask him, "What do you want?" And this little boy at 4 years old would say, "I just want my freedom." Couldn't even pronounce the word freedom, but he just knew what he wanted. Dick Gregory said, if a 4-year-old boy who can't even pronounce the word freedom can stand up, then why aren't you? Why aren't you willing to stand up and fight? That was also the year when 4 little girls were murdered in a church, when there were some white people who reminded the world they'd rather blow up a church than let black people worship in peace. That was also the year when almost 500,000 people marched into D.C. for jobs and freedom, marched out back to their own communities dissatisfied with what they saw in D.C. That was the year that Medgar Evers was shot dead in his driveway. The year when President Kennedy was assassinated. 1963 to James Baldwin was a dangerous time. I'm here today to suggest to you that we're back at that dangerous time today. It's been 54 years, and it's just as dangerous today as it is now. That we're living in a time we see the rise of white supremacy. We see white lash pushing a white supremacist into the White House. We have to stand up. We have to be the ones we have been willing to wait for. We can no longer sit by. We can no longer calmly allow things to happen under our watch. This is a time when you have to choose to be on the right side of history. My father, who was also involved in the civil rights movement in Jim Crow, South Carolina, said he meets people today and said, "Oh, I marched with King." If everybody marched with King who said they did, then change would have actually happened. If everybody did it. This is our moment. And 50 years out, are you going to be able to stand up and say, when it was time to stand up, when it was time to be counted, when it was time to make my voice heard, when it was time to go to jail, when it was time to sacrifice, I did the right thing at the right moment. Because that is what we are called to do. As we think about it here, and I think about the fact of what has happened this weekend, and standing outside of my house, thinking about people taking a knee and reading all kinds of things online. I'm looking for Adam Jackson, who challenged people to think about the fact, is it just a knee that we're taking? Because even when you get up, who still owns the industry? Who's still making the money? I was challenged to think about that, and then I went and pulled down those pictures of Dr. King when him and other pastors kneeled down in the face of terror. And they bowed their heads in prayer and said, this is how we stand up. Even when we kneel, with the strength of who we are, we push this racist nation to move forward anyway. People are more concerned about taking a knee than people dying on the street. They're more concerned about the cloth than what the cloth represents. You know what's really disrespectful to American flags? Confederate ones. That's what's really disrespectful to an American flag. But that is not what we want to talk about. Instead, we want to engage in debates that don't go anywhere. On any given day, Baltimore, when I'm driving my sons to school, I'm raising teenage boys that I speak about often. And I watch them in the back seat because teenage boys, I'd rather them sit behind me than beside me because they keep touching stuff and moving stuff. Sit behind me so I can see what's going on back there. But I engage them with questions as they're going off to school. I ask them 3 questions on a daily basis. What does it mean to be black? What does it mean to be black in America at this moment? And what does it mean to be a black male in Baltimore City at this minute? Who are you being called to be at this moment? How do you bend your privilege and stand up today? How do you make a decision to walk away when something's going down that you should not be a part of? How can you actually paint your life to be a masterpiece of what I've put inside of you? I said, you're my young Picassos, and I want you to paint brilliance of what I've done to you. Show me what you've learned. Show me that my work is not in vain. Show me that even though you walked away when I was talking, and sometimes you got to grab them back, you heard what I was saying. You understood that this is history that we are living at this moment, and that you have to stand up. I stand here as someone whose life is bookended by the work my father did with the murder of Emmett Till and the work my son started doing with the murder of Trayvon Martin. I am sandwiched between these 2 generations who are trying to do something more. And my job as a mother, my job as an educator, my job as a conscious human being who has humanity on my side is to make sure that they're doing what they can to make things better. I was told I have 20 minutes, and I'm going to respect Director Carter because she will pull you off if you go forward beyond what she has given you. But I want to lay out 3 things that I think we need to work on. I call them the tools in our arsenal bag. What do we pull out when we need to fight? What do we pull out in those deepest, darkest moments when we feel no one is listening? What do we do when we send our sons off to school? We send our daughters off to the playground. When we walk into areas where we feel afraid, what do we do? What do we draw on? What do we pull out so we can keep going? I would say the first thing is the strength of our character. What is it that defines you? When I told my father I was going to take my sons out to march after the murder of Freddie Gray, I said, Daddy, I'm going to take them out. We're going to march for 10 days straight. And my youngest son yells in the background, we're going, but she didn't ask us, Granddaddy. I said, Dad, what should I read to them to prepare? You got me ready to stand up. You got me ready to struggle. Tell me what I should be telling them. Now, my daddy's a Baptist minister, and so he took me to the Word. He said, I want you to go to Esther, chapter 4, verse 14. For if you remain silent at this time, relief and deliverance for the Jews will arise from another place. But you and your father's family will perish, and who knows? But yet you have come to your royal position for such a time as this. He said, this is the moment when you become the parent that I trained you to be. This is the moment when everything I poured into you, you have poured into those boys. Go and stand up for truth. Teach them how to stand for justice. Teach them how to bend their privilege, even when nobody wants them to. What is the strength of your character? Who are you when nobody else is looking? When you look yourself in the mirror and you come face to face with your own decisions, are you happy about what you see? Are you proud of the decisions that you have made? Did you learn how to use your voice and to stand up? So that first tool is about your character. Because the character is what molds you, it's what shapes you, it's what's carried you. If you remember with me, It's our character that shaped us. And it carried us from 1619 when the first 20 Africans arrived on the shores in Jamestown, confused and alone, building a new community. It carried us through over 200 years of American enslavement, whips and terror on the backs of people like Harriet Tubman and Sojourner Truth, Nat Turner and James Forten. It carried us through segregation, when we had to walk miles for education, being beaten and starved, disenfranchised and disempowered. Our character carried us. We are here today because everything that people sacrificed for us got poured into us. So who are you when nobody's looking? What's the story that your life is going to tell? We have survived because of our character. We survived sharecropping and the nadir of black history. We survived Reaganomics and crack cocaine. We survived Vietnam. And we will survive white supremacy, and we will survive Donald Trump. We will, because we are strong-willed, and we are stubborn people. And we know how to survive, and we know how to reach for something more, and we know how to stand tall, because we understand that this is who we are when no one else is looking. So that first tool that I challenge you is with character. The second tool is courage. And I believe that the true mark of courage is being able to stand up, even if you have to stand alone. That idea of being the one to speak out at courageous moments. There's a story that I always tell Baltimore. It's one of my favorite stories about my children. My son turns 15 on Saturday. Yes, I'm afraid, because he's becoming a teenager and he's discovered that there are girls in the world. He said, Mommy, it's a lot of girls everywhere. I'm like, yes, they're everywhere. Yes, they are. But when he was 4 years old, he was playing in his room, upstairs by himself. And if you're a parent, you know what it's like when kids can play by themselves. You can get some things done, right? You can breathe for a second. But he yells out and he sneezes really loud. And then a second later, he says, God bless you, Amir. And so I brought him downstairs. I'm like, Amir, you were by yourself. Why did you say, God bless you, Amir? He said, Mommy, sometimes when you're by yourself, you gotta bless yourself. I'm like, you do. Sometimes when you are by yourself, you gotta bless yourself. You gotta be the one that you've been waiting for, because they don't recognize the genius that's inside of you. They don't recognize your brilliance. They don't recognize your talent. They don't recognize you have a message. You gotta be able to say, God bless you, Kay, and mean that. I put that up on my mirror. Every morning I would say it. God bless you, Kay. Your boys are gonna be okay. And God bless you, Kay. Baltimore City is gonna survive this. God bless you, Kay. What you're doing matters. God bless you, Kay, because as the Bible says, and my daddy reminds me, you're fearfully and wonderfully made. Are you able to bless yourself? The second tool is courage. Being able to stand up when no one else is standing up with you. Being able to take a knee because it's the right thing to do at the right moment. I remember my father one time, I reminded him of this weekend. When I would get in trouble, and I'm gonna testify for a moment, when I would get in trouble, we have to go down to the basement to have, a lecture from the pastor before punishment is given. I'm like, just jump to the punishment. But sometimes like 20 minutes of history about everything you've done wrong ever in life, as a people, as a person, history laid over me. I would sit there and go, let's get to the punishment, Daddy. Because sometimes you gotta take notes. Sometimes, there's a test afterwards. But once, when my father was getting ready to mete out punishment, and I knew that I was right, but he wasn't listening. He said, you have anything to say before we get to the next level of engagement? I remember, and he talked about it this weekend, that I got down on both knees in front of him, and I bowed my head, and I started singing Wade in the Water. And he looked at me, he said he almost started laughing, trying to figure out what was I doing, singing Wade on the Water in the middle of getting ready for punishment. And he told me, stand up, why are you doing this? And I said, Daddy, you said during the Civil Rights Movement that when they felt afraid, when they felt they had no voice, when they felt alone, they just got down and sang. So Daddy, I'm getting down and singing in hopes that we're gonna be okay here. I escaped punishment that day, but it stayed with me. What does it mean to stand up in the face of incredible violence and terror? Stand for what you know is right, even if you're standing alone. So that first tool is your character. The second one is courage. And the third and final one is you have to have certitude that there's something bigger than you. We are fighting for something bigger than you. They call it faith. You've got to believe that there's something out there that your eye can't even see, but it's out there waiting for you. Because those that started on these shores in 1690, they never thought we would get here. They never thought we'd have a black man ascend to the highest office in the land. They never thought we'd be sitting here as doctors and lawyers and judges, successful in our own right, able to shape policy and change cities. They never thought that. But they were working towards something bigger than themselves. The way I see faith is that when you come to the end of all that you know, and you get ready to step off in the darkness, faith is knowing that God will give you something very strong to stand on, or he will teach you how to fly. Because either way you go, you will be okay. I think about that. I think about getting my place in line and knowing that there's a voice I have to claim. I always watch when geese fly, because they fly in that V formation. And when the one in front gets tired, it just falls to the back and the next one rolls up to the leadership. There's no committee. There's no vote. There's no discussion. There are no telephone calls. It's just the next leader who's ready just steps into the position and moves the whole flock forward. Sometimes we got to know when it's time to step into the leadership position. Without committee, without discussion. We have to be the ones pushing people where we know they have to go, even if they don't see it for themselves. I see that as a work of my daddy and people like Reverend Brown, Reverend Heber. Sometimes you got to pull the flock along with you. They don't know where they're going, but you do. And you got to be willing to stand up for that. Baltimore City, I keep this list on my wall. It's in my office. And it's been there since July 2014. And every time someone else is killed, I add their name to the wall. The list has been growing beyond one poster into a second one. Eric Garner and John Crawford III, Mike Brown and Ezell Ford, Dante Parker and Tanisha Anderson, Tamia Rice. I do it so that I don't forget. Freddie Gray and Sandra Bland and Laquan McDonald, I do it so that a piece of their lives will remain at this place, at this moment. And I want their families to know that somewhere out there, somebody else is suffering too. I do it because I'm raising 2 black boys in Baltimore City. And my hope is that their names won't have to be added. I do it because of all the work I've done in my life can't get my own boys home safe. Then I question, what am I doing here? The thing that keeps me moving forward and how I get back up every morning, how I throw my back to the wind, not so that my kids can simply survive Baltimore City. I want them to thrive here. I want them to be happy here. I want them to dream here. I want them to grow here. It's because of faith that there's something bigger than me. So you got to have your courage, and you got to have the strength of your character, and you got to have faith. Baltimore, I believe that there's this place that exists, and it's just beyond our current reality. It's a place where dreams are fulfilled, where our children, black and brown children, are allowed to be babies, where they can grow up and they can learn how to laugh and not how to hide, where they can learn how to stand up and not how to duck down, when they can learn how to dream out loud and not be crushed into a corner. I have this dream that something will be different and that place is out there. So I want to challenge you today in the spirit of people like Walter P. Carter and Sidney Daniels, Frank Williams and Judge Howard, in the spirit of Carter G. Woodson and Mary McLeod Bethune, in the spirit of your grandmother and mine, I challenge you to lean with me into the space. And as you reach forward with one hand, Baltimore City, I want you to reach back with the other. Because the only way we can change this situation is that we have to change it together. God bless you. You're fearfully and wonderfully made.